Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Girl Mind Your Business. And we're going to get started. But first, let me tell you, we have a guest. And when I tell you, I know women out there that have been carrying something heavy. We're doing everything. We're trying to run our business. We are trying to run our lives simultaneously. But you've been through mental health challenges, relationship trauma, burnout, addiction, and loss. And we're high functioning, but we're hurting at the same time. You don't have to be fully healed to start leading. And today we have a person, Carol Cruz, who have lived this more than a decade of recovery work, a podcast platform that she built with the real stories. And she has a coaching practice that has put community at the center of healing. She is living proof of what was broke, and you don't have to be broke to stay broke. You can heal. And we're going to bring Carol to the stage so she can talk about healing.
I love that intro.
Carol,
I want to cry. That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Cookie. So
thank
glad to be
you. Thank
here.
you. We are so glad to have you. And when I tell you, when I read, what you turned in, it just filled my heart because, as you know, I'm in the process of trying to get a recovery center together because I have connection. I was not a substance abuser, but I pretty much lived it because my sister was. And that is just near and dear to my heart. And I wanted to bring you on because we heal. We don't realize we go through all of this, and some of us never heal, but we don't realize we hadn't healed. But I just want you to introduce yourself. Just give me a quick little introduction. But in the meantime, while you're doing that, I need you to tell us who you were before the title, before all of the healing. Just give us a little clip of who Carol is.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. Great question, Cookie. Well, my name is Carol Cruz. I am the host of Cruising on the Edge podcast. That's where I met Cookie. I met her on my Seven Figure podcast, which has been a venture since last October for me. I am also a woman in long term recovery. And what that means to me is that I haven't had to use drugs, alcohol. I have also been in recovery from trauma, domestic violence, many other isms down the road for 31 plus years. I am not only a person in recovery, I am a wellness coach, also a recovery coach. And what also that means is helping people where they're at and helping them guide them on their journey to whatever recovery looks like for them. I am a podcaster today. I do have a full-time job. I am also a call crisis center specialist. I work from home. I have that privilege to get to work from home, but I am a crisis call specialist, but I am a podcaster and I utilize wellness, recovery, community, connection, all the things that you mentioned, Cookie, to bring hope where there's none, especially in these times where there's many individuals, families that are not only losing their loved ones to addiction, but they're also losing, their wellness. And when I say that, that's whole body wellness, right? I do believe in God and in the spirit, but I also believe in multiple spiritual practices that also can lead people into this world of recovery. Not every day is a good day, but most days, as long as I keep showing up, are good days. But
That's
thank
that's that's good. And as long as you're showing up for you, that's what's
Mhm.
important. So you work with individuals and communities that have been impacted by this challenge. So, what do most people get wrong about, recovery? And what does that actually look like from the inside?
Well, it took me a long time to understand the science behind addiction and mental illness or mental health challenges. Once I realized that the science meant that it wasn't a choice for me to become an addict. I didn't come out of the womb and say, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna become an addict," and become homeless and have a child out of wedlock and be in active addiction. Like, that was not my goal as a little girl. What I've learned over the years, and again, I've had 31 plus years, but I had started this journey back in the mid 80s during the crack epidemic, during the war on drugs, which we, that's a whole nother conversation about the advocacy around, you know, bringing in more services to combat, because we're also looking at mass incarceration, people that look like you and I,
Yes.
and around, you know, limited amounts of drugs that they were arrested for, but may have a drug problem or an addiction problem and are not being treated for that. The science came in when I realized that the drugs and alcohol were hijacking my brain. Where it was fun, to get together with kids, friends, skip school, smoke a joint here and there, have a bonfire with a few beers, steal some beers from my parents', cabinet or refrigerator or whatever. It was fun and it was a choice. But then when drugs and alcohol hijack my brain, and that's the science. And again, I'm not a doctor. Full disclosure, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse. I am a person in recovery that has witnessed and experienced firsthand what that lifestyle can do to a person. I think what people get wrong is that they believe it's a choice, and there's a lot of stigma. We're still fighting that as advocates. We're still fighting the good fight around language, around informing families. I think a lot of families started to get more a hold of it in the early 90s when the opioid epidemic happened. I live in the state where Purdue Pharma was handing out oxycodone and many other opioids like candy. And even the federal government said it's not addicting, it's pain management. Again, watch the labels, read the fine print, because chances are it's going to take you to places that you don't want to be. The other thing that I just want to mention is that, you know, my recovery has brought me to a place that was beyond my wildest dreams. I am grateful to still be here, to be able to talk to you and your audience and others that I meet along this path and this journey, because again, I think I found my purpose. I found my healing through where I had to experience. And one other thing that people don't get right, or they were misinformed. I shouldn't say they don't get right. They're misinformed, is that people that may have an addiction may also have a mental health disorder that is undiagnosed. And most treatments will address wanting to stabilize the drug use before they'll look at the mental health disorder that might be impacting depression, trauma, PTSD, complex PTSD, and others, you know, mental health challenges.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I don't know. But I know firsthand about the them not addressing whatever it is, because with my sister, it was always one thing, but then they didn't address mental state. They never want to address that. They want to address the addiction more than anything. And I guess because that was more lucrative for them. I don't know. But and I'm not a doctor either. I just know what I've went through for years with her, and it just takes a toll on everybody, and people that don't understand just don't understand. They don't wanna understand, really. But let's move on from that because I can stay here all day and talk
Same
about
here.
that. But you also run Cruising on the Edge podcast. What made you decide that the most powerful thing you could do with your experience was put that on the microphone?
Mm, great question. Thank you. So, cruising on the edge had been, again, that thing in your bucket that, I'll get to it one day.
Right.
Actually, COVID, as we were all getting on this virtual platform, Zooming in, Teams in, whatever, whatever platform, excuse me, I just got to move this to the side a little bit. Whatever platform we were getting on during COVID in technology.
Mhm.
And as being in the recovery community, we witnessed again firsthand how many people were disconnected,
Right.
right? They meetings 12-step meetings started showing up finally on this platform and other modalities, other pathways to recovery, but we were still disconnected all in all. And during COVID, I was attending, some 12-step meetings, other recovery dharma, and I had the first actually in 2019, right before COVID, I was in Las Vegas for a what we called a non-conference. It was Mobilized Recovery, an organization, and I'm still part of. And we were representing all 50 states. So we were filling a room, a ballroom there in Las Vegas, where a friend of mine who is the director and head of Mobilized Recovery, brought us all together and, hearing some really great speakers and things like that. And then, like I said, we fell into COVID.
Right.
And I had interviewed a friend of mine at that conference in my hotel room. And at that time, I was calling myself Girlfriend's Guide to Recovery. And I still have that platform. Actually, I've turned it into a blog on Substack. And a Girlfriend's Guide to Recovery for me stands for, you know, girlfriend or a guide, recovery, outreach, and wellness. That's the acronym for it. So going through that process, and then where we are right now in October, working for a call center and not getting out too much and kind of being disconnected. I watching Main Street media and I'm not liking what I hear.
Yes.
And I'm watching independent media and I'm hearing the truth. And I can be part of that. I can do something. And of course, I'm scrolling through Facebook during work and here comes upon me my seven-figure podcast. And seeing and hearing David, CJ, I was, just over the moon. I logged in, I signed on, I pulled the Band-Aid off, I took the leap, and again, like they say, rest is history. That's why I'm here. I want to get the message out.
And that's good. That's what we all wanna do. But let's for 1 second, let's take a commercial break, and I just wanna let you know this episode of Gurrll Mind Your Business is brought to you by Black Women's AI Network. This is a community where not only Black women, but women entrepreneurs don't just use technology. We define it, we design it, and we lead it. And if you're a woman entrepreneur ready to utilize the power of AI in your business, your community, or your life, this is the table. Pull up a chair. Black Women's AI Network is the future of AI, and it has your name on it. Okay, back to the episode. Okay, Carol, you built your coaching business, which is not easy. I know because I have a coaching business. I really have a lot going on. But what has been the hardest season for you in that line of work?
Great question. coaching in itself, there's so many facets to coaching. And mine came from being a 12-step sponsor at first, guiding people through this process, not telling them what to do, but utilizing motivational interviewing, asking those good questions, actively listening, like listening to people, which I believe many of us just want people to listen. We don't need your advice or your opinions. We just need you to listen.
Right.
And so again, during COVID, that kind of had to take a back seat where I was also a trainer for recovery coaches in my state and national. And so I was training other people, and I was continuing on that path because there wasn't a lot of folks that one could afford coaching. So I think economics has a lot to do with the process. I think still too, coaches are looked at as helpers versus a profession.
Right.
And that is the thing that I really had to put forth is that belief that I'm there to guide you, but I'm not there to do the work, right?
Right.
It's really up to you to do the work. So I took on a coach of my own, and I started to realize that sometimes I had to shift and change how I presented coaching. Now, I don't do a lot of coaching, but in the job that I'm in, as a specialist, a call center, a crisis specialist, I do coach people. That's just not my title. I do want to, erect that process again through cruising on the edge, whether it's a workshop, one-on-one coaching. I think it's just allowing yourself to be flexible, and you just can't be like one-sided or one lane focused. You really have to kind of shift and move to the needs of what people need. I also one of the modalities that I worked in is harm reduction. And I find that I needed to learn more about harm reduction, and then I became a harm reductionist, and what that means is just people that aren't ready to stop using, but may be on medication and management, which could be Suboxone, it could be Vivitrol, it could be methadone, right? Or they want to be in moderation management in alcohol, utilizing alcohol. So that I learned to use that as a better work for me and work for people that I was being introduced to, and I was introducing them to coaching because not that say that abstinence isn't a pathway. Absolutely, it was my pathway. It's what helped me to stay sober. But there had to been an openness for me to, if I wanted to reach more people, I had to be more open to other pathways. And harm reduction has been one of those that I've been able to coach people. But again, I'm not really doing a whole lot of one-on-one coaching.
That's great. I know your work is rooted into the community, not just individual transformation, and which is a good thing. But just tell me, how does that space, what does it mean for you to be held by the community? Because I'm sure some of them look at you, some of the people look at your past, and they may not even know your past, but I'm pretty sure some of them look at you and saying, what does she think she's doing? How does that make you feel in the healing process?
Another great question. There's two sides to, like they say, two sides to every coin. So I'll start with the community of the unknowing. You're right. The community that sees me, sees this. And if I was to show them my state ID from 31 years ago when I was 7 months pregnant with my son, I have shown that because people, when I say I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict, that I haven't used drugs and whatever, they're like, "Oh, not you. You don't look like." And then when I show them where I look like my skin is yellow and I look like a skeleton and, I'm just unhealthy, that is sometimes what I have to do. I have to show them proof. Um,
Mm.
and even in that community, I used to have a nonprofit called the Reach Out Project, and I was mainly wanting to work with young kids, high school, middle school, and high school kids and their families because that's where I started, right? I started at the age of 12 utilizing alcohol, and it just graduated from that. So
Oh,
I believe, again, the community that's not knowing, it's really important to get them in the know, get them in woke, get them to wake up that they're, especially families, parents. I talk to a lot of parents and they're like, what did I do wrong? It's all my fault. And it may be part of that the issue, but the thing is like you gotta get out. You wanna help your loved one, like, you gotta get out of that mindset,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
The other side of the coin is the recovery community that is very rooted in there was one pathway, and that was 12 step that was, founded by the founders, Bill W. and Dr. Bob. Alcoholics Anonymous, and are very rooted in that. And so here I come along and I want to be a coach and I'm being paid for my services. Where in 12-step program, you're not paid as a sponsor. And if you're paying your sponsor, then you need to find another program because that is not the principles of that program. And also it may be rooted in a spirituality when people are like, no, 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 I don't want the God concept. I don't want to have anything to do with God.
Yes.
And so they look at us as, we're not in our lane. So again, it's an educational thing. And I have sat down with diehard 12 steppers, and I didn't do the work in regards to transforming their thoughts, but giving them the information, help them to start thinking and help them to start getting curious that, oh wow, there may be there's something to this recovery coaching or wellness coaching. And again, it's not new. We've watched life coaching, business coaching for years. And
Yes.
this is just another name before the root of coaching or coach, and it's guiding someone from where they're at to where they want to be.
Yeah.
That is the point.
Yeah. And that's a real connection versus social media connection. And that's what people don't understand. Everything you see on TV, my mom used to say all the time, listen to what people do, not to what they say. And that will tell you everything you need to know. But as what is one thing you wish women in business, women that are healing, having relationship issues, what do they need to know about between their mental health and whatever their goal is? How can they grow? What can you tell them to change their mind, get them focused on where they need to be versus where they are or where they used to be?
That it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight, as most things don't. To be patient, but also be curious that even if recovery coaching isn't for them or business coaching isn't for them, first just, you know, I journal every day,
Okay.
and journaling, putting it down, putting my story or how I feel is super important. As women, we carry a lot of hats. And now again, nothing to say to male counterparts, partners or anything like that, but we come in with children. We come in with other family members we gotta take as caregivers. We come in working a full-time job. We come in wanting to be and usually the entrepreneur or the business hat comes in last, as
Mm,
much as we desire. And I heard someone say last night that they quit their job, and once they let that go, again, that's like, in today's
yeah,
day, you just be grateful that we have jobs, but
right.
same time is this person took the leap. And sometimes we do. We just have to take the leap of faith, whatever that looks like. It could be the mustard seed or it could be the burning bush, whatever that is for you,
Yeah.
is take the leap, but also find community. Don't do it alone. That's one of the biggest things that I saw when I walked into a 12-step meeting is that you are not alone. We
Right.
can't grow in isolation. We saw ourselves and many others struggle during COVID because we were isolated. There's
Mm,
nothing wrong with putting aside some solitude, some time of rest so you can recharge for all the hats that you're wearing, right? And don't go in there trying to think that you're going to fix somebody or you're going to fix a situation.
right.
You may
Right.
see the problem, but see how you can enhance their recovery or wellness versus I got to go in there and fix it. Because again, we as women, we think, yeah, like,
Yeah,
oh,
you gotta
I
fix everything.
have a recipe and, oh, this is what you're missing. I'm going to give you this, you know,
Yeah.
No, don't do that to yourself because again, there's a Buddhist inspired approach to choice, right? I can choose to be in suffering and that's trying to control you in the narrative, or I can choose to be happy.
Okay. All right, Carol, we have about 2 or 3 minutes. Just give me your final closing remarks, and then I'll close it out with what I have to say.
Okay. Well, this has been a wonderful experience. You're only, like I mentioned earlier, you're the third person that I've been on their podcast. So thank you so much for the invite. I love that we're both CCs, and my nickname was Cookie in high school because my last name at that time was Cookie or Cook, and that was my adopted last name. But
Okay.
what I guess what I want to leave, the conversation with is that there's no dream too big that you can't reach. Again,
Okay.
find community, find people like-minded, find a community like we are in Cookie, My Seven Figure Podcast. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, that also can give you that little extra push. So, again, don't do this alone. Keep keep cruising, as I would say at the end of my show. Keep
Yeah,
on
yeah.
cruising.
Okay, Carol,
Okay,
thank
Carol,
you
thank
for joining
joining
us,
us.
for just taking your time out. And if there's anything that was shared today that landed for you, know that you are not alone. You don't have to do this by yourself. And it's not something you have to figure out before you start building or healing. And if you need any support, if you have questions, I'm sure you can find Carol at Cruising with Carol,
Cruising on the edge
Cruising on the Edge.
on
And
YouTube and other platforms.
okay, all right. And if any women are out there that are building a business or even your life at the same time, just keep going, keep living right, doing something right. Now is the lifetime that you don't have to look back and do later. Thank you, Carol. Your audience is exactly who you show up for. And I'm glad to be a part of your life. Thank you for joining us today. And we will see you on the flip side. All right.
Yeah, this ain't about gossip. This ain't about noise. This is about ownership.